Okay, so today's prophetic word is going to be divine reversal, freedom, and release. Divine reversals, freedom, and release. I say in the name of Jesus. Okay, now where we last left off at is Esther chapter 9 verse 16, and it says, now the rest of the Jews who were in the king's provinces also gathered to defend their lives and got relief from their enemies and killed 75,000 of those who hated them. But they laid no hands on the plunder. This was on the 13th day of the month of Adar, and on the 14th day they rested and made that day a day of feasting and gladness. But the Jews who were in Susa gathered on the 13th day and on the 14th and rested on the 15th day, making that day a day of feasting and gladness. Therefore, the Jews of the villages who live in the royal towns hold the 14th day of the month of Adar as a day for gladness and feasting, as a holiday, and as a day on which they send gifts of food to one another. And Mordecai recorded these things and sent letters to all the Jews who were in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, both near and far, obliging them to keep the 14th day of the month Adar, and also the 15th day of the same, year by year. And as the days went on, and as the days on which the Jews got relief from their enemies, and as the month that had been turned for them from sorrow into gladness, and from mourning into a holiday, that they should make them days of feasting and gladness, days for sending gifts of food to one another and gifts to the poor. Okay. So pause. What's happening here? What I just read. When the Jews, when the plan of Haman fails and the Jews gain mastery over those who hated them, instead of Haman's plan working, it does not work. It fails. On the very day that the people of Haman wish to gain mastery over the Jews, the reverse occurs. Instead of them gaining mastery over the Jews instead ends up gaining mastery over those who hated them. So after what we're reading now is, now the Jews are defending themselves. The 10 sons of Haman have now been hanged on the gallows. And also the Jews have killed 75,000 people. They're defending their lives. They're defending their families. And afterwards, now they are, when they gain mastery over their enemies, in short, there's a holiday. We're reading about how now the 14th day and the 15th day of the month of Adar has now been turned into a holiday. So what does the holiday represent? In Esther chapter 9 verse 22, it says, as the days on which the Jews got relief from their enemies, and as the month that had been turned for them, from sorrow into gladness, and from mourning into a holiday, that they should make them days of feasting and gladness, days for sending gifts of food to one another and gifts to the poor. So pause. Whereas before they were mourning, and they were distraught because of the decree that had been sent out, that all the Jews are to be annihilated. When they get the victory, the month is now turned from mourning to gladness, from sorrow to feasting. Now it's a holiday. Yeah, no, I say they're feasting. And it's gladness. And they're sending gifts and food and gifts to the poor. Yeah, no, I say. In Esther chapter 9, verse 23, it says, so the Jews accepted what they had started to do and what Mordecai had written to them. For Haman the Agagite, the son of Hammedatha, the enemy of all the Jews, had plotted against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast that is, cast lots, to crush and to destroy them. But when he came before the king, he gave orders in writing that his evil plan that he had devised against the Jews should return on his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged on the gallows. Therefore, they called these days Purim, after the term Pur. Therefore, because of all that was written